Today, I'm returning to another principle from the Psalms, and today I want to look at the principle of the stronghold. Now, to many Christians, that word stronghold carries a negative meaning because we recall Paul's words to the Corinthians where he says, "The weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but they are mighty to the pulling down of strongholds." And that's speaking about the negative aspect of a stronghold in our life, because the negative aspect of strongholds has with it the bondage or the control that the enemy has over our life. So Paul's words here to the Corinthians are encouraging us that the power of God is available to us to destroy these areas in our life and to set us free. But it's the positive side of strongholds that I want to look at. Realistically, the basic meaning of a stronghold is positive. It's defined like this: a stronghold is a fortified place. It's a place of security. It's a place of survival. Now, if we want to throw some synonyms in here for this, we would use the word like a castle or a fort or a bastion, a fortress, something like that, to give the idea of a secure place, a stronghold. So when I use those words like fort or castle or fortress, what comes to your mind when I say words like that? Well, how about a picture like this? Now there's a stronghold. You can see that it's all surrounded by water. Now just imagine yourself being secure in that castle at the very top, maybe on the very pinnacle of it there, if there was ever an attack, if possible. That is a stronghold. That's a fortified place. Or how about this one? Look at another one, and you here again, surrounded by water. And can you see the drawbridge that is there? Pull that drawbridge up, and there's absolutely no way that you're going to get into this castle or this stronghold. In the medieval times, this would have been the ultimate place of security, a place of great protection for those that would want to hide in this place. Now, when you read the scriptures, you will see that David refers to going to his stronghold. It's a place that he had, or places through the land that he had, where he could be safe and his men could be safe when they were being pursued by Saul, as Paul wanted to kill him. But it wasn't a castle like these pictures that we just showed you. It was more like a cave. It possibly looked like this cave here. We don't know for sure, but possibly. And as you look at that cave, you can see that there's only one way in. So there's protection that is there. There's protection from the elements, from the rain or whatever would be there. It would be a very secure place. You post a couple guards at the entrance to the cave, it would be fine. And it's possible that it was a cave, I don't know, maybe like this, that rather David had the opportunity to kill Saul. He didn't, but he had that opportunity, as it was a place when you would go in for shelter. But no matter what this secure place, this stronghold that David had, no matter what that looked like, he took refuge in them for protection. That was the physical aspect. But David looked beyond the physical security, and he says in 2 Samuel chapter 22 and verse 3, "But my God is my rock, in whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn of my salvation. He is my stronghold." David saying, "The Lord is my stronghold, my refuge and my Savior. From violent men you save me." The Lord is my stronghold. Now, if we reflect on the minor prophet named Nahum, his words in Nahum 1 and 7, "The Lord is good, a stronghold in the day of trouble, and he knows those who trust in him." Now, that's the New King James translation. If we look at the Authorized Version, or the Old King James, it says, "The Lord is a stronghold." In other words, the Lord holds strong in the day of trouble. He holds you strong. Imagine the security that is. Imagine the security that a child feels when a mother holds them strong in their arms in the time of trouble. Another verse that we can look at is Psalm chapter 9 and verse 9. The Lord is a stronghold for the oppressed, a stronghold in times of trouble. And those who know your name put their trust in you, for you, Lord, have not forsaken those who seek you. So again, the psalmist here saying, the Lord is a stronghold. That's the principle that I want to look at today. The Lord being, God being our stronghold in the positive way. But not from Psalm chapter 9, as we've just read, but from the very familiar Psalm 46. And when I start to read it, I'm sure that you will identify him. So let's read Psalm 46 and verse 1. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, even though the earth be removed, and though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea, though its waters roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake with the swelling thereof. Selah. Remember what we said about Selah? Another way to say that is, what do you think about that? So all of these things. God is our refuge. God is our strength, our stronghold, our place of safety, our hiding place, our shelter, our help. Now, look at this verse again and notice the four calamities that are here. Notice it starting in verse 2. Even though the earth be removed, even though the mountains be carried in the sea, though the waters be troubled, though the mountains be shaken. Just look at all that. Even though 1, 2, 3 of national or natural calamities take place, and then he says, what do you think about that? Even though all these things, God is still our stronghold. Now, this psalm in general, Psalm 46, David did not write those words. They're attributed to the sons of Korah. If you've got your Bible open, which is always a good idea as we're going through this, you'll notice maybe in the header of it, it's attributed to the sons of Korah. They are not just encouraging words. They are words of rejoicing from the proof that God is our refuge and our stronghold. So this just isn't a nice thing when we encourage one another. No, the writer is actually writing from an event. And the theologians, although they speculate a little bit, most of them feel that this particular psalm is placed during the time of King Hezekiah. And more specifically, when the Assyrian king Sennacherib had come in to invade Judah. Now, he had moved through the north part. He'd captured the country of Israel on the northern Israel, and that he'd moved through to come into Judah on the south, and King Hezekiah had paid tribute to him, so he'd gone back, but after a while he changed his mind, and he came back, and he wanted Hezekiah and all of Jerusalem to surrender to him. He demanded with the letters that they surrender to him. So Hezekiah and Isaiah, who was at that same time, they began to have a prayer meeting, and they prayed and asked the Lord what to do. And this is what the Lord did. I'm sure you know the story, but the Lord sent an angel and destroyed the enemies. So can you imagine Jerusalem, and you can imagine the Assyrian army around, and you imagine Hezekiah and Isaiah in the inside of Jerusalem, in the stronghold. They're praying to the Lord, and the Lord comes down and wipes out the army. Matter of fact, you look at the scripture, it says one angel, one night, and the army was no more. Now you need to catch that. You need to catch that for today. You need to catch that because there was a national disaster taking place. They were on the verge of death. If the Assyrians came in, there would most definitely be some killing. They were on the verge of destruction of their home. They were going to be taken away into captivity. But just one night, and just one angel, and everything changed. Just one word from God, and everything took a different turn. You need to catch that. That's what the Lord can do. But don't hang too much on that word angel, not too much, because further down in the psalm, we're going to see something very exciting. So we have Hezekiah here, and all of Jerusalem are all locked up. They're all under siege, unable to get out. Does that sound familiar? All locked up, can't go anywhere? Their stronghold, though, was not the walls of Jerusalem. That wasn't their stronghold. Their stronghold was God. God was their stronghold. Let's look at some words. If you look at that word refuge, literally it means a place to which to go quietly for protection. You kind of run into this and it protects you all the way around. So when you make God your stronghold, you will find strength to face the siege that is around about you. Let me repeat that. When you make God your stronghold, you will find strength to face the siege that is on the outside around about you. Why? Because it's not your strength, but it is the strength of the stronghold, or it's the strength of the Lord. It's the strength, if you're fleeing from the enemy, so to speak, in a battle and you run into the castle and you shut the drawbridge, and then you're in the stronghold. Well, God is our stronghold, and when you run to him and when you hide in him, you can face the siege that is coming against you. Let's look at the word trouble. The word trouble is interesting because it literally means in tight places. In tight places. And I'm sure we've been all in that spot once or twice before, in tight places, something coming against us, tight financially, tight health-wise. We've all been there. But look what it says again in verse 2, Psalm 46, verse 2. Therefore we will not fear, even though. Therefore we will not fear, even though. Now, again, just stop with the story here for a minute. The Lord is our stronghold. We will not fear. In this present COVID situation, there's a lot of fear going around. Just a lot of fear going. You can see that if you're out a little bit and you come close to somebody, there's apprehension. And yes, caution is needed. For sure, caution is needed. But fear has no place. Not at all. We need to be wise, but we don't need to worry because God is our stronghold. God is our place of protection. God is that, can I say, that bubble around about us? Yes, caution, but fear has no place. If we look at the next verse, we see those cataclysmic events that we were talking about before. The earth being removed. That's a major change. Earthquakes, always earthquakes are a major problem. Tsunamis, they're a problem. Mountains being tossed into the sea. That we can't even comprehend that, mountains being tossed into the sea. But we might comprehend the sea and the tsunami coming in, bearing high ground. We could do that. So a word that we have here to look at is removed. Even though all those things, what happens, they be removed, because that word removed can be translated change. Therefore, even if there's a total change in the way we have to live, even though if there's a total change in everything around about us, we will not fear. Why? Because the Lord is our stronghold. Now, the writer, again, as I said earlier, is writing this from experience. And he's telling us that God saw them through. And then he throws that word Selah in there, or Selah in there. What do you think about that? Just ask yourself the question. Just stop for a minute and think, God did all of this. What's your comment? What do you think about that? This psalm is made up of 3 parts. So let's move on to the next part. It begins in verse 4. So Psalm 46 and verse 4. There is a river whose streams shall make glad the city of God, a holy place in the tabernacle of the Most High. God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. God shall help her just at the break of dawn. The nations raged, the kingdoms were moved. He uttered his voice, and the earth melted. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Selah. What do you think about that? What do you think about that? Now, when we look at this section of the psalm here in the middle, and there's 3 sections, this may seem out of place for the whole topic of stronghold, until you look at the physical dynamics of which this was written in. You see, what would happen would be this, that the enemy in those days would come against the city. They would siege the city and completely block it off. Everybody was safe inside, but there was no way of coming in and going out. And they would try to cut them off from food and from water, and eventually have them surrender because they were starving to death or something like that. Oftentimes, water sources were outside of the city or the walls that were there. But Hezekiah, earlier in time, made a very wise and a practical decision. He made that decision to divert the water from the spring at Gihon through an aqueduct. So way out at the spring out there, what happened was that he had made this aqueduct, and he'd cut it out of solid rock and caused it to come through, and he dumped it into the pool there, or a cistern, whatever it was, in the city of Jerusalem. As a matter of fact, the stats on that are he'd cut it through solid rock at 541.6 meters, or for us who were raised in the other standard, for 1,077 feet through the rock, so that it would bring water into the city. Then he buried the source of the spring, and he caused so that the enemy could not discover it, cut it off, so they had water. So now catch this. The enemy would not know of this inner refreshing that is in the city. They would not know that. They could literally drink, they could literally wash, they could grow their gardens, all of that. Now stop and think about this. God is our stronghold, and we're referencing it in the practical to Jerusalem. There was an inner refreshing in the stronghold, an inner refreshing. Now the enemy must have wondered, why aren't these people failing? Why aren't they being cooperative? It's because they had the secret of an inner refreshing. Are you catching this? An inner refreshing they had. They had it in the physical. We have it in the spiritual. So in the midst of trouble, in the midst of those things that are around about us, the siege that is around about us, we have an inner refreshing available to us. You see, without this hidden river, Jerusalem would have fallen. No doubt about it. And they would have fallen not because of the enemy on the outside coming against them, but they would have fallen because from the inside, because of the weakness and failure inside. Now think about that. Things that affect us, we need to realize it's not the outside things that will cause us to fail, but those inside things. That's the thing. That's where the weakness is. So Jerusalem was strong on the inside, so therefore it did not fail. The psalmist reveals another secret of this stronghold. Now we just talked about the refreshing river, but also it had a marvelous or a wonderful resident that's there. Notice what it says in verse 5, Psalm 46 and verse 5. God in the midst of her, she shall not be removed. God shall help her just at the break of dawn. God in the midst of her, she shall not be moved. God shall help her. Now make that personal. God is with me. I shall not be moved. God will help me. God is my stronghold. Make it personal to your life. Let's leave Jerusalem for a minute and the psalmist, and let's bring this right home to our life. Who is that marvelous resident in our life? That's Jesus. He is Emmanuel. He is God with us. He said, I'll never leave you and I'll never forsake you. Often we think about Jesus living in our heart, and we're talking to the children, where's Jesus live? Jesus lives in my heart. And that's fine and everything like that. But really, we live in him. As the book of Acts says, is in him we live and we move and we have our being in him. And the strength that we need doesn't come from us, doesn't come from our talents, our abilities, any of those things. But we live in the stronghold called King Jesus. We live in that stronghold called King Jesus. Let's go back to this river for a minute. The river there of the stronghold and the refreshing. And I'm sure you've caught this by now, but I'm going to focus on this river here. Jesus went to the woman at the well in Samaria. You know the story, I'm sure. It said in John 13 and John 14 and John 4. I'll get it right yet. John 4 and verse 13. Jesus answered and said to her, whoever drinks of this water will thirst again, but whoever drinks of the water that I shall give them will never thirst. But the waters that I shall give him will become in him a fountain of water springing up into everlasting life. Will become a fountain of water in their life. Look what Jesus said in John chapter 7 and verse 37. On the last day of the feast, the great day of the feast, Jesus stood and cried out, saying, if anyone thirsts, let him come to me and drink. He who believes in me, as the scripture has said, out of his heart will flow, say it with me, rivers of living water. Out of his heart will flow rivers. We're talking about a river of refreshing here. If you need strength to carry on, and if you need a refreshing in your inner person, and if you're tired of being pushed around by the enemy and the adversary of your soul, then come to Jesus. Only Jesus is the true stronghold that we need in life. This true stronghold. Like the song that we teach the kids in Sunday school, or we did in the times past. With Christ in the vessel, we can smile at the storm as we go sailing through. It's so true. A simple song, but it's so true. Come to Jesus. Only Jesus can provide the refreshing that we need in our life. Only Jesus can be that marvelous guest within our life. His invitation is open to all. In Revelation chapter 3 and verse 20, he says, I stand at the door and I knock. If any man will hear my voice, will open the door and will come in, I will come in and will sup with him and he with me. So let's now go back to the psalm that we've been talking about. In verse 5, we read, God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. God shall help her just at the break of dawn. Now look what it says in verse 7, Psalm 46 and verse 7. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge, Selah. What do you think about that? What do you think about that? He is with us. He is our refuge. So in verse 1, we read, God is our refuge, or our stronghold. In verse 5, God will help us now. And now in verse 7, the Lord of hosts is with us. Now there's no way that you can read all of this without realizing that God's on our side, that he's there to be with us, that he's present with us. And that should bolster your faith, and that should kill your fear. God is with us. He's our refuge. He's our stronghold. He's our help. All of those things. But it's the next phrase that really seals the deal. Because notice what it says. The God of Jacob is our refuge or stronghold. The God of Jacob. Now this is more than just a historical reference going back into the lineage of Israel. No. But it has a reference to the character and the nature of Jacob. It doesn't say the God of Israel. It doesn't say that. It says the God of Jacob. Recall, Jacob was a supplanter. He was a trickster. He was a manipulator. But one day, Jacob wrestled with the angel. One day, Jacob wrestled with God, so to speak. And his life was changed. And when his life was changed, his name was also changed from Jacob to Israel. He was changed from the old nature that Jacob, his name describes, to a new nature that is described in the word Israel. Israel actually meaning a prince. As a prince you have power with God and men. At one time, in one way or the other, we were all like Jacob. No, maybe not as bad as Jacob, but we were like Jacob. We were seeking the things that satisfied selfish desires. We were seeking our own way. We were outside of the covenant of the blessing of God. Now God chose Jacob, in spite of who he was. God will be the stronghold for the unlovely. God will be the stronghold for the unacceptable. God will be the stronghold for those of questionable value. A person simply needs to turn to God. You simply just need to turn to God, and he will be your stronghold. God wants to be our stronghold. He wants to be our refuge. He wants to be our strength. You don't have to pass any kind of evaluation test. You don't have to measure up to a list of do's and don'ts, anything like that. You just need to say yes to Jesus, and he will be your refreshing, and he will be the marvelous occupant of your life, and he will be your stronghold. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Again, it doesn't say the God of the changed person, doesn't say the God of the perfect person. God met Jacob in his backsliding. God met him in his failure and his deceit, all of those things. That should encourage anyone to come to Jesus, because he will be all of that to you. The last section of the psalm gives us direction as how to live in God as our stronghold, how to live in God. In verse 8, it says, Psalm 46 and verse 8, "Come, behold the works of the Lord, who has made desolation in the earth." In other words, look, behold, pay attention. All of these things that God has done, just come on, pay attention. That's the first and the foremost thing to understand, is that God is our stronghold. God has done many things in the world, and you just simply need to stop and to look and to observe. And even in your own life, look at what God has done in your own life. That's the first thing that we need to do. No matter what is besieging your life, you will be encouraged when you think about the good things that God has done for you. So oftentimes we want to think about the siege. We want to think about the bad things. We want to think about that's what occupies our mind. No. First thing we need to do is behold the works of the Lord in our life. Now the second thing is in verse 10, Psalm 46 and verse 10. "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth." Be still. No, that's too hard. But that's what he says. Be still. Wait. I'd rather be doing something. I need to put effort in it. Be still and trust. Be still and let God be who God is. If you're having trouble being still, then just back up to the first point. Back up to verse 8. Start to think about the good things that God has done for you. Do you remember the words of Isaiah? "You will keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is" what? "Is stayed on you." Why? Because he trusts you. 1, 2, now the third thing. The third thing is to know. Notice what the verse has said, "Be still and know that I am God." So we need to put this solid fact in our mind about knowing some things. Know that God is God. No doubt about it. Know that God will be exalted in the nations, in the people. May seem at times that God is not acknowledged in the people, but know that he will. And not only that, know that he will be exalted in the earth. His plan will prevail. His kingdom will come. His will be done. Now notice the last verse in Psalm 46 and verse 11. "The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge." Selah. What do you think about that? I think it's wonderful. There is no fear when you make God your stronghold. There is refreshing when he is your stronghold. The world outside may turn upside down. God will help us through. All of those things. He loved the scoundrel called Jacob. That means he will love me. No doubt about it. God is my stronghold. Say it with me. God is my stronghold. The Lord of hosts is with me. Say it with me. The Lord of hosts is with me. I will rest and be still because the Lord will be exalted. There's no doubt about it. So as we go forward in the days ahead, remember this psalm. There is a refreshing in the Lord when we make him our stronghold. To close off, I'd like to leave you with a story. The story talks about a place in Florida some years ago, and a little boy wanted to go for a swim, so they had a swimming place out back, a little lake out back, and so he wanted to refresh in the cool water, and in a hurry he runs out of the back door of the house and he heads for the water, and as he's going, he's shedding his shirt and he's shedding his shoes and everything like that, and he gets to the dock there and he dives into the cool water and begins to swim towards the middle of the lake. What he didn't see, what he didn't realize, is that there was an alligator in the lake that was swimming towards shore. Now his mother was at the window, and all of a sudden when she looked out, she could see both things taking place as they came closer together. And so in utter fear, she tore out of the house and she was yelling and screaming at her son. And of course, the little boy, hearing his mother's voice, became alarmed, and he made a U-turn and began to head to swim back towards the dock, but it was too late. Just as he reached the dock, she reached down to grab him. The alligator reached him also. So here's the mother holding on to her son on this side and the alligator on the other side, and she's trying to get them away from the alligator. And the alligator, of course, is much stronger than the mother and is pulling, has the little boy's legs in his mouth, and he's pulling, and she's passionate. She will not let go of her son, no matter what. And it happened that there was a farmer that was driving down, and he heard the screams and going on and saw what was taking place, and he quick jumped out of his truck with his rifle, and he very carefully aimed, and he shot the alligator. And the little boy mother was able to take the little boy. Remarkably, that after a number of weeks in the hospital, the little boy, of course, he survived, and his legs were extremely scarred. The animal, of course, wanted to tear him apart. Newspaper reporter interviewed the little boy after the trauma, and he said, "Can I see your scars?" And so he pulled up his legs, pulled up his pants rather, to show him his legs, and there was the scars on his legs. And then with a sense of pride, he said to the reporter, but he said, "Look at my arms also. I have great scars on my arms. I have them because my mom wouldn't let go." You know, we may have scars on our bodies from the battles that we go through, but you need to know that Jesus will never let go. He is our stronghold. He is our fortress, and he will hold us. And we may limp through life like Jacob did after he met with God. We may have scars or have some changes, but one thing is for sure, that God is our stronghold. Let's pray. Father, we thank you that you are the one who holds on to us. When the enemy wants to grab a hold of us and tear us to destruction, you hold on to us. And we are so thankful for that. And I pray this day, Lord, for those that are besieged, as it were, I pray, Lord, that they would realize that there's a refreshing in you and that you would refresh them. I pray that they would realize that there's safety in you and you will protect them. You will be that fort, that stronghold that's around about them. And I pray, Lord, for the needs that they would have, that you would come through, just like you did in that old time of Hezekiah when you sent an angel, Lord, and changed it all. That, Lord, in one night, everything would change. And I ask you to do that in Jesus' name. Amen. God bless you. Have a safe week. We'll see you next Sunday morning. No, we won't see you next Sunday morning. Next Sunday morning, Reverend David McFarland will be with us. Join us next Sunday morning for Reverend David McFarland.